Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about Rick Grimes and what if Rick Grimes never woke up from his coma, and how would the story change if Rick was never around. So let's jump right into this with season 1, and the first big change would be that without Rick, everyone on that supply run in Atlanta would die. So that is Merle, T-Dog, Jackie, Morales, and Andrea and Glenn would have been trapped in the city and would be unable to escape and would have died in Atlanta, never making it back to the group. Moving on to the group, without Rick, Shane would remain the leader and fully become that father figure he wanted for Carl and have that relationship with Lori. However, that's the only bright spot of this timeline, because without Rick, there is still the attack at the camp and we would lose a big majority of our group still. However, without Rick, there is no trip to the CDC, so Shane will take everyone who survived to Fort Benning. And just like in season 2, they would end up being trapped on the highway, and maybe they'll lose a lot of characters along the way, but definitely by the time they get to Fort Benning, they'll find out it's overrun and almost everyone would die solely because all the fighters already died back in season 1. They all died in episode 2 because they never made it out of Atlanta, and the few fighters they had left, Shane would still be it. However, Daryl, he would leave. The only reason he stuck around was because of Sophia, Carol, and Rick and that whole situation. Without Sophia going missing, or maybe Shane would have given up on Sophia's search way earlier on, and without them running to the Green family, there's no Rick situation. Daryl would either go back to try and find Merle and die in Atlanta, or go on his own way and leave the group, leaving Shane really the only fighter, and that would lead to everyone else really dying. Shane's the type of person who probably would eventually end up leaving people like Carol behind. Even if they made it to Fort Benning, everyone would have died. Shane might have made it out with Lori and Carl, but that's it. However, Lori would have then later died at birth at some point down the line, and that would leave just Shane and Carl if they survived the Fort Benning incident. It's a 50-50 if everyone would have died on the journey and at Fort Benning, because apparently it was overrun and swarmed, so they might have walked in, got surrounded and died there. But we're going to go on a timeline, maybe they did survive a little longer. Shane and Carl would become almost raiders, and Carl would go down a really dark path with Shane as the leader, and with Shane having a massive maybe ego and very stubborn, maybe not a massive ego but very stubborn, anyone he came into contact with, he would not be able to integrate very well into a group, so there definitely wouldn't be he joins the governor. He has a big sense of he's right, everyone must follow him, because look, when Rick took control, he spiraled out of control. I think people wouldn't get behind Shane, and because of that, Shane and Carl would eventually die in the wasteland, maybe a couple months after Lori's death, after the death of Judith, and they would maybe make it maybe a year or two is what I think, and that's what I think would happen if they survived the Fort Benning incident. And if we went further into the timeline after the death of Shane and the death of the entire group, you have big things like Morgan wouldn't end up with fear, so I always bring this up in every what if. The world would be nuked, North America's nuked, and then I always bring this up with the no Rick, there's obviously the whole CRM wipes out the all of America. And that's what I think would happen if Rick never woke up. Everyone would not make it really that long. Rick really held that group together, and he made everyone just get in the right places really, because without Rick, things are just going to really fall apart, and especially without Rick, they would never meet the Green family, so all the Green family would die. Herschel would have kept collecting walkers, and a herd would eventually have strolled through the farm and killed the entire Green family. So they would have all died as well, and it just shows how important Rick was in the early seasons, because without him, they were just completely doomed. Shane couldn't keep that group together, in my opinion, and this is just my thoughts, so please tell me down below, what do you think? Do you think that it will play out differently? I'll listen to all your thoughts down below. How do you think the scenarios would play out if Rick never woke up and Shane stayed the leader? This is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.